It is time for the news. This week in music news, let's first start off with news I could give a care less. First off, for those of you who were waiting the long-awaited Supertramp reunion, the former lead singer of Supertramp said, hell no.
See, this is, it doesn't matter which sort of style they left, whether they left in a massive upheaval of the band in all, drama, hair flying everywhere, stuff like that. There is a certain amount of respect that you have to give to every single member of the band. Now, if the lead singer all of a sudden throws a paddy and says, there is not going to be a reunion, never ever there is not going to be a reunion, do you accept that?
Generally speaking,
Yes.
I do, subject to money concerns.
See, now that is the big issue. I mean, if you take a classic band like Queen, for example. Now, I'm mostly known for my rock and metal. I'm a big fan. Queen wouldn't be a part of that if they hadn't have had someone like Freddie Mercury at the forefront. If Freddie Mercury, after three massively successful albums, had said, that's it, I'm done, do you believe that Queen could have continued with the same success that they had had, specifically considering that their frontman was there no more?
And the fact that the band still plays, it's okay to a point, but that's another story for another day without making me go blow a gasket. For those of you who are curious who Supertramp is, there is only one song I want you to listen to. Look it up on YouTube. It is called The Logic Song. It's the best song by Supertramp and is the best way to remember them by. Otherwise, I could care less, considering they haven't been well known since the 80s.
I would say that is fair enough. Now, see, the big issue is, I mean, a lot of people say that a band is never bigger than the frontman, which, if you look at some certain bands, is fair enough. If you look at a band like Supertramp and you look at bands like AC/DC, Metallica, fairly old school bands that have made it big in the recent times, would you say that a band that has carried on a frontman for so long can bring that frontman to the forefront, and not only that, give him his own style?
I give you Genesis.
I would take that example and I would shake your hand, because Phil Collins is an absolute genius.
In other more news that I could care less about, Jet has called it quits.
See, now this is a little bit sort of disappointing for me, because some of the songs that Jet have come up with, like in recent times, for example, the massive hit Are You Gonna Be My Girl, that was an absolutely huge hit over here in the UK. Now, if Jet would have stuck at it, I reckon personally that they would have created hits just as big as that. I'm not sure if it was the same over in the US, but as soon as the opening of Are You Gonna Be My Girl entered into pretty much any British club, everyone knew exactly what was coming and they would sing along. But that was it. There wouldn't be anything else that they would sing along to. I'm not sure if it was the same over in America.
They did pretty well here in the States too, although they aren't an English band, they're actually Australian.
Well, when I say English, when I first heard them, I heard them in England. I wasn't sure of their origins, but the Are You Gonna Be My Girl was an absolutely massive hit over here in England. Doesn't matter what club you went into, and during the time that it was released, I was in several different clubs, several different kinds of music, and every all played this. So was the spread in regards to musical clarity the same over in the United States?
Yes, they were very well received. They did very well here in the States, although they kind of trailed off a bit, although they made a resurgence over the last couple of years because of a commercial of all things. One of their songs was actually used, I believe, by Chevy here in the States to sell a car, and it actually re-sparked a lot of sales for them, and they made a lot of money off of it.
That is one thing that I've always really respected over in the States, is the impact that advertisements have on a certain group. Over here in the UK, most of the time, if you hear a song, you don't really... You hear it in regards to the advert, but you don't sort of necessarily look for the band that it is, associated with. Whereas over in the US, if you hear a song with an advert, due to the massive amount of channels that you have over there, and the massive amount of playtime that they have, the band is spread across the entire country, especially if they hit it big in a channel such as the NBC or something similar. So a band like Jet, I would imagine, got a massive amount of screen time and radio time over in the US.
Yes, they did very well. Moving on to a little sad news. For those of you who have never heard of him, his name is Earl Scruggs. He died at 88 a couple days ago in Nashville. For those of you who do not know him, he was one of the pioneers in the bluegrass field in the mid-20th century. For those of you who would like to know what he played, he is the man responsible for the Ballad of Jed Clampett, the theme to the Beverly Hillbillies.
Now, personally, I have never watched an episode of the Beverly Hillbillies. I've never listened to the theme tune. However, the style of the banjo was greatly sort of integrated into British music. Now, in the 60s and 70s, the Beatles made a massive name for themselves, both internationally and nationally over here in the UK. And I think about 15 years ago, possibly even less, 10 years ago, there was a concert over here in the UK, and Paul himself said that he was influenced by Earl Scruggs, and he actually brought out, it wasn't necessarily a banjo, but he brought out a ukulele that, if you think in terms of string numbers and the way that it is played, is very similar to the banjo. And during this special set that they did, there was a 30-minute session where it was all banjos, and they claimed that, John, Paul, Ringo, and everyone else used to play these banjos and these ukuleles because it was such a massive part of their music that it essentially evolved itself into the four-piece band that we know today.
This guy, in particular, the style that he is credited with starting that has taken up with so much is the picking style of playing a stringed instrument, where you take either a pick, or in most cases when you were in bluegrass, you had a what looked like a pick that was attached to your finger. It was a little more than a ring with a little bit of metal protruding that you would use to pick the strings. And a lot of people credit him with giving that distinct beat and style and three-string harmony that was later taken over with rock and roll and rhythm and blues as time went on. That this man is the one primarily responsible for a lot of all of these things. And it is sad that he is gone, and he could not make more of an impact than he did while he was here.
I mean, if you look at people like Earl Scruggs especially, you mentioned, Davlen mentioned the rhythm and blues sort of style that has evolved over the years. But you've also got to give him massive credit for the country music that has evolved out of the States. Even though I'm an English speaker, I'm an English listener first and foremost, people like Garth Brooks, Tim McGraw, the raw country sound that has come from America, they've pretty much all come from people like Earl Scruggs, and it is a shame that he has passed on.
But he lived a full, good life. So goodbye, man.
He did. Goodbye, and I would like to say on behalf of everyone that is listening that likes country music or R&B, that we thank you for the amount of effort and the ingenuity that you've put into the industry that we know of as today.
Now, in album coming up news, first off, Smashing Pumpkins will be returning with a new album in June.
Now, I will be honest, I've never been the biggest fan of Smashing Pumpkins. I've honestly never ever sort of been attracted to their music. I'm not going to deny their ability, because anyone that gets to the level that they have has to have some sort of ability. But for me personally, their music has always been a little bit wishy-washy.
Now, let me rephrase that. They're no longer the Smashing Pumpkins anymore. I'm sorry. They're now the Pumpkins.
Now, the Smashing Pumpkins and the Pumpkins, it will be interesting to see which route they take, whether they will decide to play on the fandom that they had as the band Smashing Pumpkins, or whether they try to distance themselves as the Pumpkins.
Now, for those of you who can't get enough of them, they are slowly releasing 44 tracks from their other album, which is called Tear Garden, one track at a time. They're not giving a timetable on that. And the album that's supposed to be coming out in June, I believe... No, that is the one that's coming out later on this year besides it is called Oceana.
That is indeed correct. Now, when you talk about the Pumpkins, you are now talking about the frontman Bill Corgan, the bassist Nicole Fiorentina, guitarist Jeff Schroeder, and drummer Mike Byrne. So you are not talking about the original lineup of the Pumpkins. So they believe that Oceana is a standalone project within a larger concept of the Smashing Pumpkins. So it will be interesting to see where they go. So whether they decide to stick with the similar sort of solo route that they took with the Smashing Pumpkins, or whether they decide to experiment a little bit more on their own.
Now, going in a completely opposite direction, another band will be releasing their first album for the first time in 8 years. Sadly, that's about the amount of time it was ago that I used to work at the Best Buy that I had heard this last album. It is Aerosmith will be releasing their next album, I believe, later this year.
Now, Aerosmith are an interesting band to me. Aerosmith have always been a band that has been there. So if you look at stuff like Don't Want to Miss a Thing, Dude Looks Like a Lady, general classics that you can associate with a massive rock era. So they announce a new tour. You're instantly interested in what they are going to do with it.
They claim that some of the stuff will be inspired from the Get a Grip era of sessions that they did on the album. They're still writing, they're still recording, they're still trying to get it all done. At the moment, they are rehearsing about 25 songs, so we'll see how many actually get out there into the album. But for the most part, for my personal opinion, I'm kind of mixed on this. They're one of those bands that I like them the way they were, but as they've gotten older, they not exactly have aged gracefully.
If you look at their classics, I believe that they can still play their classics. That is one of the big issues, though. While they might play their classics, they might play their classics very well. Any band that is in that situation has to move forward. No band can constantly sit in one era. And Aerosmith haven't been able to replicate that in this era alone.
Let's move on before I have an aneurysm. For those of you who are listening live, I have linked what you are about to look at. Apparently, what is considered some of the best dashboard video ever has been released out onto the internet. It is from the Canadian Royal Mounted Police. It is from a gentleman who was arrested for public intoxication. Big surprise there. And apparently while he was on the way to the police station, he breaks out into a full version of Bohemian Rhapsody.
Is this the real life? Is this just fantasy?
Oh, don't worry, Kex. We'll get to that later.
I mean, to be honest, if you've been caught and you're, slightly intoxicated at the time, I don't think there's a better song to sing. Out of all the songs that you could potentially sing from a rock and roll standpoint, surely Bohemian Rhapsody has to be one of the greatest, because everyone knows Bohemian Rhapsody. On the off chance, you might even get the officers singing Bohemian Rhapsody and you can make a run for it. Not that I'm condoning, drunken behaviour.
Just don't drink and drive, folks.
Yeah, anything else you're fine.
2 quick stories for y'all. This weekend, at least on Sunday, is also the 47th Annual Country Music Awards. Why am I covering this? Because if I don't cover this, my DM is going to probably kill my character.
Now, the funny thing is, as an Englishman, usually, you think of country music, you're like, Englishmen don't know what country music is, blah, blah, blah. I genuinely enjoy country music. People like Garth Brooks, Tim McGraw, Faith Hill. Admittedly, I'm kind of stuck in the past in regards to that, but the amount of emotion that country music has, it doesn't matter what sort of music you listen to, you cannot deny the emotion that is put into these awards.
Now, I've never heard this song in my life, but for some reason, I want the winner to be you and Tequila.
And why is that, dear Davlen?
Let's just say me and Tequila have a history.
I think, to be honest, if you look at anyone who is drunk in their life, everyone has a story with tequila.
It wasn't 1 tequila, 2 tequila, 3 tequila floor. In my case, it was 12 tequila floor.
Most of the time, in my case, it's 1 tequila, 2 tequila, 3 tequila bed. So,
now
I'm on the back burner.
While that is also going on, during the actual ceremony itself, apparently a song is going to be duetted by Martina McBride and the frontman for the band Train, Patrick Moynihan. And apparently there's going to be a wedding ceremony.
Now, see, this is a big issue with me. Now, I'm not a perfectly religious man. I'm English. I don't really give myself over to any particular religion. However, at the same time, I don't sort of apply myself to any particular religion at the same time. So if someone wants to say that they do and they wish for a Christian wedding religion at the sort of awards, that's neither my place or anyone else's place, apart from the people that decide that. I know a lot of people that may disagree with me with that, but that is my thoughts on it particularly.
I try to keep my opinions to myself. I just find it a little too convenient that they're going to be doing this live on air with a song that they've done. I smell commercialism.
Davlen, I can understand the commercialism from where you are coming from, and I personally believe that everyone listening to this show can also believe the commercialism from where you are coming from. Please voice your thoughts once at least, because this is the prime example of the thoughts that can be released in this example.
Nope. My opinions are to my own in this, at least the music industry. However, the only thing I will say in this case is shameless, shameless, shameless. Let's move on to something that'll cheer me up. Like Justin Bieber getting sued.
Ooh, that cheers everyone up.
Justin Bieber apparently has been on a little kick since apparently he is going to be the new host of Punk'd over on MTV.
Now, I've never been a massive fan of Punk'd simply because of the presenters that they've had previously. However, recent stories have been given out that Bam Margera is now going to be the host of Punk'd.
We will see. It'll be fun either way.
Either way, some Hollywood actor is getting like ridiculously dicked over. So, and if Justin Bieber is the first, I welcome it.
Not in this case, actually. Apparently, Justin Bieber thought it would be funny to tweet out a random phone number to all of his 19 million followers on Twitter that said, "Call me right now." He put in all the digits except for one. The problem is, there actually were phone numbers attached to some of those digits. Two of them are in the state of Texas. A gentleman named Kent and an older woman who was, I believe, in her 60s.
Now, the interesting thing is, if you've got a legal character that is as big as Justin Bieber, do you sue him, or do you sort of act it as a tweet of comedy, or the issue is, if you've got a tweet that is done by a similar person, not as famous as Justin Bieber, that misses out a tweet, you might get one or two people that are slightly knocked off if they have a phone number similar. Whereas Justin Bieber, if he leaves one phone number off, you've got millions of fans trying to figure it out. So, do you punish him in the same rate as you would as someone else, or do you think of him as he is in such a massive position that he has tweeted a number without, one that has been tweeted along with it as a menace to society?
To this point, I think ever since he has turned 18, he's turned into a dick.
To be honest, I think as soon as he turns 2, he's turned into a dick. But
now, I gotta respect him mostly because his father could kill us. His father was a former MMA fighter.
That is true. That is very, very true.
So I fear only that. Otherwise, somebody take this guy a couple down pegs, or at least end his 15 minutes. I'm tired of it.
Yeah, I would agree with that. If someone could take him down his 15 pegs, that would be fantastic to prove that he is actually human. That would really, really sort of get him under the grip slightly, if you will.
Let's move on to the final news story this week. This gets to my serious side. A British gang was recently jailed for a scam involving iTunes.
Now, this is a interesting story in regards to me. Now, as it says on the Rolling Stone website, gang members in England use stolen credit cards to purchase their own music on iTunes and Amazon as a scam to earn royalties, the BBC reports. 5 gang members from Kent, Derby, Birmingham and Wolverhampton, England, have been jailed, with one other sent to a youth offenders institution for the elaborate scheme. The big issue that I've got with this is, if you're taking on a band like the Rolling Stones, at this point in their career, they're not likely scrabbling for rent. They're not worrying about, oh, do I have enough to pay for next month? No, they're worrying, oh, do I have enough to buy another car? They have a lot of money. Now, admittedly, if someone has scammed them out of potential credit card sort of, not necessarily schemes, but if someone's sort of taken them out of credit card profit, then that is a serious offence. However, if they are scamming them out of, say, something small like DVD sales, at this point in time, it barely registers in regards to the amount that they are paying iTunes and Amazon.
Now, the thing with this scam in particular was that it ran for about a year and a half, and it basically was the fact that they were just getting people to buy. It was just basically getting them to buy the song so that they could get the money from the song being bought. Now, apparently, estimations are approximately between $1.2 and $1.6 million in losses from both Amazon and iTunes combined. The saddest part about this is that a teacher was also jailed for helping them, apparently.
Now, if you look at $1.2 to $1.6 million, if you look at that in regards to English money, you are looking at an average of probably about 800,000 to 900,000 million pounds. If you are a member of the band Rolling Stones, 800 million pounds is pocket money, especially if you're like Mick Jagger. So, at this point, you are essentially being a detriment to the spread of your music, which is, to any band, it doesn't matter whether you're famous or whether you're not famous, it is a bad mark against you.
So, I'm going to just put this out there real quick. I'll get on my soapbox and then get off of it. For online digital distribution to work for independent artists, crap like this does not need to happen. If little bands try and do this, it is only going to embolden the record industry to think that what they are doing is a correct idea. So stop it. For the sake of all other artists, stop being a jackass and actually buy something, or at least get a real job. And with that,
I would agree with that.
And with that, let's close out the news for this week.